welcome to Nola Louise Knits. In this video, I'm going to show you how to bind off the straps in the invisible double-sided Kitchener method for the Starlette Bralette. Now you can see this isn't a perfect method because it can never be quite as stretchy as the ribbing, but it gives you a very unintrusive melding of the stitches from the ribbing into the strap, and it does have a little bit of stretch. So I wanted to also show you on this bralette I've been working on, I did bind off the stitches on this strap in the 3-needle bind off method. And I won't show you how to do that in this video, but there are many great tutorials out there. This also is a fine option. It isn't invisible, but it has a little bit of stretch also, and it's also a firm base for your strap. Okay, so with this strap, I've worked the length of the strap I want, and so I still have my stitches on my strap needle here. I've gone ahead to show you in advance what it looks like in the next step. You're going to be slipping the stitches that are on the needle, both for the strap and for the held strap stitches on the back, onto 2 double-pointed needles. And you're going to want to put the knit stitches in the front and the purl stitches in the back. So each strap size has an odd number of stitches, so no matter what size you're working on, you should have one less stitch in the front than you have on the back. I hope you can see that. Yes, so that's a purl column, and that is the purl stitch in the back. Okay, so I'm going to slip the stitches from the strap to show you, and what you want to make sure is that you're looking at the right side of the knitting. So even though it'd be easier to just turn my knitting up this way, that's actually the wrong side of the strap, and I won't quite get it right. So the right side of this strap is the top here, because that's the side that's going to be on the outside when we finish. So I'm just going to rotate my knitting so it's a little bit easier to see those stitches as I slip them. Okay, so on the strap, you'll notice we actually have 2 knit stitches to start, but for the purpose of slipping the purls and knits to match the back, we're going to pretend that these 2 outer stitches are purl stitches. So purl stitches go to the back. We slip every stitch purlwise. So I have 2 double-pointed needles here. So this first stitch, we're going to slip purlwise and go to the back because we're counting it as a purl stitch. I'm just holding that needle in my other hand. The second stitch, we're going to slip also purlwise, even though it's a knit stitch. We're going to slip every stitch purlwise, and we're going to hold it to the front. And then we're kind of just going to alternate with these 2 needles, slipping the purl stitches to the back and the knit stitches to the front. Purl stitches to the back, knit stitches to the front. Purl to the back, knit to the front. Okay. It's a little fiddly, but not too bad. Okay. Okay, so you can see I've got 7 stitches in the front and 8 stitches in the back, which is what I want to match up with these stitches down here. 7 in the front and 8 in the back. Okay, so now we're going to start binding off. Let me turn this back around. Okay, so if you've ever worked Kitchener on the toe of a sock, this is pretty much the same thing. We're just going to ignore for now these sets of stitches that are on the back side, both on the body of the bralette and on the strap. So I'm just going to hold the 2 needles together that have the front set of stitches and kind of just like ignore those 2 needles back there. So with Kitchener, the thing you always want to remember is for every step, you always want to bring the yarn under the needles. That way you won't get an accidental loop with the yarn coming over a needle. So this first thing just looks a little tricky, but the yarn right now is connected to this back purl stitch on the strap. And it looks like, oh, if I bring it under the needle, I would bring it under this way. But as you see, that's actually putting a loop over the needle, because underneath the needle, if we were holding this the way we would normally knit it, would actually be here. So you want to make sure for this first step, you bring this yarn kind of what looks like over that back needle and between those two strap stitches needles. Okay. Now, first, there's two setup steps for Kitchener. Sorry, and it looks like a tangle of needle. So just to make clear, over that strap needle between, and then you're gonna go between these body needles too. Okay, so now we're in position. So the first step for Kitchener is to just go purlwise into that first stitch and pull the yarn through, leaving it on the needle. There we go. Oops. And then we're going to pretend that these two are the only needles, so we're going to stay just under these two needles. So we go under, and then we go knitwise. Whoops, it's a little fiddly. Knitwise through that back needle. Pull the yarn through and just leave it on that needle. Okay. Now we're back to actual Kitchener stitch. So there's 4 steps. We go knitwise and off. Oh, sorry, I keep bumping my camera. Knitwise and off through the first stitch, and then purlwise and stay in the second stitch. And I'm just making sure again my yarn is just kind of staying beneath those top 2 needles and not tangling on the bottom needles. Then we go purlwise and off, the back needle, and then knitwise and stay through the second stitch. Knitwise and off through the first stitch on the bottom needle, purl and stay through the second stitch. And just check, make sure it's underneath. Yep. And you don't have to tug it up so tight on this first round, because you can always come back and just tighten them a little bit later. So then purlwise and off on that back needle, and knitwise and stay, knitwise and off. And then I'm just gonna, instead of pulling my yarn through, I'm just gonna go purlwise through that second needle and pull my yarn through here instead. It just speeds it up a little. Purlwise and off, and then knitwise and stay, knitwise and off, first needle, purlwise and stay, purlwise and off, knitwise and stay, knitwise off, purlwise stay, purlwise off, and up, second stitch on the back needle, knitwise stay. Okay, knitwise off, purlwise stay, purlwise off, knitwise stay. Okay, so now we're down to just 2 stitches on the front needle. So I'm just going to show you how to go around the corner here. So we go knitwise in the first stitch. We can remove that needle. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to pull the yarn here through here so it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to turn the work, just kind of holding everything in place. And do you see how now I've got two sets of stitches on needles at the back? Just keeping that yarn underneath, I'm going to go purlwise into that first stitch and leave it on the needle. Then I'm going to turn the work back again because I still have one little stitch left on that upper needle, this little green one. And I'm going to do the purlwise, remove this needle, and then turn to the other side and go knitwise through that first stitch on that needle, on the top needle. So you can kind of see I've already gotten one side of this invisible Kitchener stitch. So now I just have to finish this back side. Knitwise off, purlwise stay, purlwise off, knitwise stay. Oops, see, that's what happens if you accidentally go over the needle. You just get an extra loop. So I slip that off, purlwise off, knitwise stay, knitwise off, purlwise stay, purlwise off, knitwise stay, purlwise off, or knitwise off, sorry. Purlwise stay, purlwise off, knitwise stay. Now we're in the same situation on the back. You can see how these are a little loose, but I'll go back and tighten them up and they'll be invisible. So we've got 2 stitches left on each needle. So knitwise off, purlwise stay, and purlwise off, knitwise stay. Okay, now with this last stitch on the bottom needle, I'm gonna again knitwise slip it off, just get rid of that extra needle, pull this yarn through. And then I'm going to just kind of look in this corner here for, see, I'm in this column of stitches, and I'm just gonna look into the next column and see if I can find a nice stitch that I can put my needle purlwise through, and that's just going to anchor the edge of the strap a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of just weave it in almost in the corner and then purlwise through that back needle, remove it, and I'm just going to look for a stitch I can go knitwise into. So I think this green stitch here looks good. I'm just gonna knitwise, give it a little tug, and you can see the strap is anchored and it needs to be tightened up a little bit, but it looks pretty good already. And I can just weave in this thread to secure it a little bit more. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I hope you enjoy knitting this pattern. Thank you.